here at the 2023 Forbes Under 30 Summit in Cleveland, and Forbes cannot come into Cleveland without checking in with one of the pro sports teams. So I'm happy to be joined by Cavs CEO, Nick Barlage. Nick, thank you so much for the time, man. I really appreciate it. When's the last time I saw you? What was that, a year ago down in Dallas?
Yeah, it was probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
That's right. We couldn't be more excited, by the way, to have the Forbes 30 Under 30 Summit here in Cleveland. Celebrating it over the next 3 years, too, between Cincinnati and then Columbus. So it's exciting for us as a state.
Yeah, as Ohio, they've done a wonderful job of welcoming us. And so thank you for the time. Really appreciate it. So listen, we're here under 30, so I got to start there, right? Do you remember like the biggest thing you've learned or you learned under 30 or before you reached the age of 40? What was the biggest thing you learned that you still use today?
Yeah, I'm not 40 yet. So I got at least another 8 months before that happens.
Yeah.
But I would
got
say
like 2.
Yeah, there you go. I think your 20s, it's like the roaring 20s a little bit. You know, when you think about it from the perspective of you are going through so much in life, learning how to integrate into the real world, as our parents would say, and transitioning from college into a job. And so for me, I feel like there was so much trial and error, learning through adversity, learning through opportunity. I always say that the foundation you gain in your 20s sets you up to explode in your 30s. Yeah. And so I think that was so true. And I learned a ton. I mean, I learned so much from mentors and so many other people in my life. But it was a time of, there's no doubt, experimenting what worked and what didn't work and what was the right way to approach certain things and the wrong way to approach certain things. And I think you just have to stay very nimble and versatile.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you one chance, man. NBA Finals, right? I mean, you know, we're a couple of weeks from the season starting. So NBA Finals, who do you like, right? Cavs versus who?
Well, I'm glad you led with that. So I
know. I've been in this business long enough. I know where to go. Where to go?
Yeah,
with this.
No, I get it. Look, I think the West and the East are so tough this year, and there's so much parity in the league. I mean, coming off the heels of last year, the most competitive season in the league in over 50 plus years. And look, the West, I could see anybody from Golden State to the Lakers to an upstart, even like the Clippers, depending on how some of these things work out over the coming weeks. But I think you can't really bet against teams like the Lakers and the Warriors right now. They're kind of tried, tested, and true. And then you have the defending champs and the Nuggets. So you've got all three of those that I could see it go to. But who would we match up the best with? It's hard. I'd probably go with either Golden State or the Lakers. It'd be kind of a spectacle to have.
Yeah, of course you pick two good markets and teams, right? The ratings would be up. It would be good for you. Yeah,
it won't be bad. There's a certain player we've shared a history with LA as well, so that could be kind of unique for the league.
As a CEO, like, how do you approach an incoming season? Like, what are your steps to make sure that the franchise is under you, the people that are under you are in position, that everything is lined up? Because again, this is business. It's entertainment, and we love the sport, but it's business at the end of the day. How do you approach every season? Yeah,
first, I think one small note is I don't look at anybody that's under me. I look at my position as the position that's at the bottom of the org chart, supporting our team and doing what they need to be doing and putting them in a position, first culturally, environmentally, and then strategically, to make the greatest amount of impact within our business. And so for me, it boils down to communication, transparency, and what are the clear objectives. We spend a lot of time in the off season really going through and making sure we have our strategic OKRs, our objectives and key results defined, and then making sure we waterfall those out to our team so they can be making strategic decisions in the moment that they know feed into a greater outcome or a bigger picture for our organization.
Yeah, and heading in 2023, 2024, obviously winning a championship is always the big picture, right? But what else is in that picture?
Yeah, we have a lot going on right now. You know, we have this kind of mantra internally. We want to take Cleveland to the world, and we think the way we do that, we have a pretty large real estate project we're working on right now and developing a global peak performance center with the Cleveland Clinic.
Downtown.
That's right, on our vision for the Valley riverfront, which is led by our chairman, Dan Gilbert. And we have a multitude of other things. The local media dynamics right now within the RSN space are one to keep an eye on. That's something we're actively working on and working through. And then we have our traditional business, selling tickets, selling sponsorships, doing all the things to put people in seats. Yeah. And we are obsessed with the fan experience. We really want to continue to enhance and grow that through technology, through innovation, and through this kind of what we've called committing to this direct-to-fan approach, which we think is so important in regards to how we build our ecosystem. And then you layer on things like our international strategy. We're really trying to build a business and a fandom in Brazil as we speak. We play a home game in Paris, in France. And so there's a scatter plot of things going into a season that you try to start to kind of distill out and really focus on what can be the biggest, most impactful moments for the brand, for the business, and ultimately for your fans.
Yeah. You know why I like you, man? Because nothing was given easy to you, right? Like me, you had a whole bunch of rejections, right? And applications, and nobody gave you a shot until somebody did. And when you put your foot on that gas, as you said in interviews that I was listening to before, you never let go, right? You go from the Suns in 2016 to the Timberwolves, to the Bobcats, back to the Cavs, right? To the Cavs, back to the Suns, back to the Cavs. Are you here to stay down?
We are, yeah.
Okay, you sure you ain't going nowhere else?
No. The unique thing, when you really look at it, is I've really worked for 2 teams for basically 13 of 18 years in the NBA. And I've been really fortunate to have great mentors at every spot and opportunities that have kind of yielded themselves to me to grow my career at a little bit of I'd say a quicker rate than even I expected. But yeah, look, getting in the door, I can remember sending out almost 200 resumes and cover letters via mail with like stamps, licking the stamps and putting them on the envelopes, and got 200 no's, you know? And so it took me almost a full year to gain access into the industry. And I told myself once that happened, I was gonna be relentless in how I pursued, how I pushed myself to be better, and how I pushed for better results for the teams that I worked for.
Yeah. How did you handle that, right? At Forbes BLK, this new community we're building, we have a question that our community likes, and it's how do you deal with work-life balance, right? I would imagine that if once you put your foot on that gas, your work-life balance goes like this because you're so busy on the goal, right?
Sure.
But here you are as a CEO, maybe you can let up a little bit, right? Just a small bit. How do you handle that work-life balance, managing a family man, right? And then managing being the CEO of a major sports franchise?
Yeah, look, if my wife was here, she'd tell you I'm still not very good at this. Early on in my career,
Neither am I, Nick.
It was like it was work and work, and there was really no work in life that kind of got woven into it. And I missed some decent things from a personal perspective. And so you have moments of reflection as you work through life. And I think one of the things that I've realized is, look, I've signed up for this. I'm committed to this. I want to make this as great as we possibly can for our city, for our region, for our team, for our family of companies. And so there's a certain degree of that there's only so much balance you can strike. But the one thing that I've really learned from some mentors that run big companies and big corporations around the country is you keep the main thing the main thing. So when you're at home, you're focused on being at home. When you're at work, you're focused on being at work. And those times you may not always be able to control as a leader or as somebody who wants to be impactful across an enterprise or an organization. But when you're taking your daughters to soccer, or when you're picking them up from gymnastics, and you say you're going to do it, you do it. You don't try to, find reasons to delegate those duties to somebody else. And for me, it's really been important that I am there and I'm there consistently. And you keep the main thing, depending on what you're focused on.
See, now I know why you don't answer my text messages after a certain time, because you're a family man, you're at home, right?
I might answer them later, after they go to bed.
Yeah, that's what it is. Take it back to young Nick Barlage, right? Like, did you always know you wanted a career in sports?
That was one thing I was very fortunate on in my journey was I knew from a very young age this is what I wanted to do. After I failed out of being a pre-med student in college, didn't fail, but I wasn't good at it, I quickly picked up sports, and I played basketball in college. And so for me, I knew I wasn't going to be able to be on the court, and so it was like, how can I do this around the court or off the court? And so from there, I was able to really focus my internships, my seasonalship experience around jobs and opportunities in sports and entertainment. And then I got a job selling tickets in Phoenix about 8 months after I graduated. And the rest was kind of history from there.
Yeah, so why pre-med? Like, were you aiming to obviously being a doctor, but what turned you on to pre-med? Wasn't MASH, was it?
No. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon for a sports team.
Wow.
I had met some people really early on and felt like that was a great job. You could work with world-class athletes, and there was a bunch of those things. But man, my mind, as soon as it got to organic chemistry and some of those other things, it just stopped.
Yeah.
And so I had to figure out and pivot early on, but it was early enough on where I didn't know what I didn't know, And so as I was able to focus on what was the right thing for me, and I had a career counselor once that told me this, if you align your experiences with what you're passionate about, not that you try to force your passions to what your experience is, it'll feel like you never work a day in your life. And I couldn't tell you how true that is, because I'm so passionate about this business and in the world of sports and entertainment. It really makes it easy to work the long hours and put in the time you need to have success.
Yeah, one of the youngest CEOs in the NBA, right? And you're only, a year on the job, right? A year and a few months as a CEO. Have you pinched yourself yet? Does it feel real that you're in this position?
I've been very fortunate. I was able to be a part of this organization as I went through the transition as the president of business ops and now into this role. So I had a 5-year kind of head start as I transitioned into it, or 4-year head start. And so for me, it's really been about how do we grow and develop our next generation of leaders? How do we grow and develop our senior leadership team? And I haven't really had the pinch me moment yet. We tend to invent or create things that are opportunities for us to maximize within the business. Maybe someday, but right now I'm really focused on what we can do to make the greatest degree of impact in our community and for our business on a broad scale basis.
Yeah. Get to the business side in a minute, digging deeper. But from a leadership perspective, you just said, I was talking to St. Marshall, right? One of your good friends. You were down in Dallas with her. And we were talking about leadership pipelining. Anything the Cavs are doing from a leadership pipelining perspective to help elevate people of color, women in sports, which is still kind of like that diversity. It's getting better, especially in the NBA, but still not, I'm sure, where the league wants it to be.
Yeah,
the Cavs are doing differently.
There's 2 things I'd point to. First thing we've done, and we have a social responsibility team that I think is best in class, but we are in year 3 right now of having a diversity, equity, and inclusion scorecard. And that scorecard is made up of 5 different components. Every single one of our senior leaders has a portion of their bonus that is dedicated to achieving those key performance indicators of that diversity, equity, and inclusion scorecard. We, as far as I know, and I'm not making this official statement, are probably the first team in sports to align compensation with DE&I objectives. And I think that's really, really, really important. We've now extrapolated that out in year 3 to all of our VPs and above. So it's basically a cohort of about 27 people in our organization that have a component of their compensation tied to the performance of how we do from a DE&I perspective. I think that's really important to lay that foundation. The second thing I'd point to is we are in year 2 of what we call a leadership and training cohort, where we basically dedicate 8 months of the calendar year to really focus on how we're growing the next generation of leaders within our organization. We make sure that group is diverse. We make sure they're diverse not just in gender or in race, but in also experience and in aspects of the business to make sure they represent all of the different business verticals. So we think the strongest way through DE&I is you have to have your house in order before you can go to market and really make an impact from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective. And then, externally, we have a whole host of things we invest in programmatically, because it's not just, in my opinion, about writing a check and taking a picture. It's about investing in programs that can change the trajectory of youth and people in our community. And those are things that we've been very focused on as a part of all of this work. It's all interconnected because it can't just be one and not the other. There's an ecosystem you have to be mindful of to really make the greatest degree of impact.
Yeah. Again, here at the Forbes Under 30 Summit here in Cleveland, Nick, when you look at regional sports networks, RSNs, and everybody's deep into it.
Yep.
MLB had the little first lick, and now here we are, NHL and NBA are up, and there's going to be a lot of dialogue there. When you look at the regional sports network, that entire ecosystem, what do you see?
I think the first thing is you have to have a mentality that when you go through adversity within the business, you have to quickly get to what is the opportunity. What can happen from this that can make us better? I'd say one of the things that's making us a lot better as a team and as a league is we're really focused, as I said earlier, on that direct to fan relationship. Forever, it's been this bundle we've been able to, quite frankly, cash a check from somebody, and now we have to get smarter. We have to be better with data. We have to be better with how we engage, and we have to be stronger in that way. I think, and so that'd be one. 2 is, look, everything is going through such an evolving media landscape right now, and I really don't know if it ever settles again. Fragmentation and segmentation is here to stay for a long time. Streaming was the advent of that. I think some people think it's going to cycle back over to like a streaming bundle eventually. It very likely could. But I do think you have to look at it for, once again, the opportunity it can create now through this new environment as it's evolving. We can get right to somebody on their smartphone. We can get right to somebody on their tablet. We can get right to somebody in their living room. And so the way I look at it is it's now evolved a suite of options for us to be more prolific in more places. Yeah. And so you have to stay focused on that. The finances are going to be what the finances are in the short term. They're not going to be great for the teams. They're not going to be great for everybody involved, quite frankly. They're not going to be great for the RSNs. They're not going to be, the whole ecosystem is being disrupted. And our chairman, Dan Gilbert, has something. He talks about money and numbers don't lead, they follow. And I firmly believe that in this scenario, we cannot lead with what the money and numbers are. We have to lead with what is the best opportunity for us to engage with our fans and become more embedded into their lifestyles. And I think that can come from this. And ultimately that can create the opportunity for us and restart some of the momentum we have at the local media level.
I know a lot of it's still kind of in the motions, right? And
it is.
You can't conclude this stuff right now. But there have been some teams making some moves. Mm-hmm. Some teams went direct to consumer, Utah, Phoenix, they're doing things differently. Anything that you see, even outside of the NBA, that a team is doing that you're paying attention to?
Yeah, look, we're monitoring it closely. We've been working on this for almost 2 years now. And so we have a lot of thoughts and a lot of kind of strategies. We have to be respectful. There's a bankruptcy proceeding that's going on, and we're very respectful of the Diamond team that's working through that, the NBA, our teams. I do think when you look at something like Phoenix has done, or when you look at something Utah has done in an over-the-air kind of combo model with a direct-to-consumer program, I think that's really interesting because in over-the-air, you automatically get into more households. I think what still has to catch itself up a little bit is the value of our local rights. I also think the one thing I keep a closer eye on is the national deal that's coming up, which will be negotiated here in the coming months and year. That really is an opportunity for us to reset a holistic strategy as a league. And I know the league is all over it. They have some of the best and brightest minds focused on it. And so those are the combinations of what I look to. And then I also think you should also look at what's worked abroad. So within European Premier League, La Liga, they really, the world is their ecosystem. And so I think we have to start thinking about that. And I mentioned Cleveland to the world earlier. We have to start thinking about how do we harness that ecosystem locally, nationally, and then internationally, because that ultimately is really important. And the last thing I'd say is part of the reason why we decided on having Brazil, for instance, as an international focus for us.
That was my follow-up. You're good at this now.
All right. Well, you want to ask it, go ahead.
Go right ahead.
Well, part of the reason why we did, I'll keep it short, Jabari, is because when you look at Brazil, one, we have 1.8 million fans there that identify as Cavs fans. Two is second largest League Pass subscription outside of the United States is in Brazil. 2/3 of their population's under the age of 35, so the demos fit. And probably the most important one is, give or take an hour, our content is in the same time zone as them. So it's very salient, it's very real time, and so we have to start thinking about that now as opposed to just one country, but the rest of the world, right? Yeah. And so I think that ultimately really helps us to restore the vibrancy to the media ecosystem, because it really is the world's game. I mean, basketball is the second most popular sport across the globe, and we've got to be always thinking about how and obsessed with how we can make the most of that.
Yeah, RSNs is one thing, right? But as we sit, you're looking at a $2+ billion franchise, about over 300 million in revenue according to Forbes estimations. Dan Gilbert puts you in that position for a reason, right? How do you grow revenue over the next few years, especially with all this RSN disruption?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's something that we are relentless in how we pursue it, with a mindset of, once again, how can we don't look at Cleveland as a small market. We don't look at Cleveland as a mid-market. We look at Cleveland, there's no reason why we can't compete at the highest of levels in everything that we do, whether that's generating revenue or whether that's putting a championship product on the floor. And so for us, once again, it starts with the mentality. It starts with a culture of thinking big and really stretching things as far as we can. And then it's also, how can we be incredibly analytical, and how can we, very, very, very focused on making sure we have our games priced the right way, make sure we have the right economic ecosystem around us from a retail and food and beverage perspective. Sponsorships are obviously massive for us. We're working on building an international portfolio of partners so that there's never a cap to our growth. And that's something we're very, very, very focused on. We have a 5-year plan right now for us to grow revenues aggressively. I can't quite comment on exactly how aggressively, but the goal of that isn't, the burden of that's not just going to rely on the local fans. Our goal is to expand our ecosystem to make sure that we are truly a global brand at the end of the day, and that allows us to transact and create commerce, and like I said, an ecosystem that's outside of Northeast Ohio, and that's something we're paying a lot of attention to and spending a lot of time and resources on.
Yeah, we can go into the business all day, but in order for the business to be effective, you got to have, I don't want to refer to players as product, but you got to have that talent, right? Speaking of that, Donovan Mitchell, it's a lot of talk about his future, right? Are you in on those discussions? And if so, what does that look like? Because it's hard to get an all-star, Nick. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron came in the city, left, and you guys seen what the economic discipline or the retaliation of was that with him leaving. But Donovan Mitchell's here now, right? How do you keep him here for the long term?
Look, I think, our president of basketball operations, Kobe Altman, does an incredible job of building relationships with the players and their agents, and JB Bickerstaff, our head coach. They're really leading that for us on so many different levels. I will say this about Donovan and our entire team. We have a group of incredible young men. I mean, they're incredible men. I mean, They are awesome in the community. I mean, Donovan is live tweeting going to high school basketball games and showing up and surprising those teams. Darius Garland is right there with him. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley. You can go on and on and on and down the list. And so for us, are we hyper focused on making sure we keep all of our players happy in here? 100%. That's ultimately why you're seeing us focus on things like our Global Peak Performance Center in partnership with the Cleveland Clinic. Look, we're going to have the second best hospital in the world, and we think one of the best basketball brands in the world coming together to create this facility that is solely focused on the player being the best version of themselves. And so for us, goes into the value proposition of what we can offer them. Look, there's contractual amounts we can offer them. We will be as aggressive as anybody in those regards. Dan gives us the resources to spend at the highest of levels to field an incredibly competitive team. So winning will be a part of that equation. The environment we surround the guys in, which Kobe and JB are obsessed with, and then all these other amenities, like I said, this Global Peak Performance Center and all these other things we try to do to make Cleveland a destination. And I firmly believe that we can do that based on all the focus we have on the value proposition we can offer the guys. And so getting back to the core of your question, we absolutely love Donovan. We love everything he's done for this team. We love the entire team, and we're focused on how we can keep this together for the long term.
I can give you a hint. Just write the biggest check. Yeah, it usually works.
That won't be an issue.
Yeah,
that won't be an issue.
A couple more things I can let you get out of here because you're a CEO. You're very busy. You got work to do. And by that Peak Performance Center downtown, it's going to be magnificent. You might get a call from RC Buford though, from the Spurs, because they say they got the best down there now. So
I said one of the best.
Yeah.
I know RC well, and I love what they're doing at the Rock, and we've taken some of those best practices and incorporated into what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Let you get out of here on this, man. I mean, again, Under 30 event is here. Talk to that young Nick Barlage, that person, that young entrepreneur, that young business executive, he, she, if they're out there, right? Mm-hmm. What would you advise them about their career ladder, right? What's the biggest piece of advice that even you received, right, and you still use today that's helped you get to a CEO?
Yeah, I think it's in my opinion, ingredients for success is a convergence of a few things. One, it's incredible to have all of these bright minds here in Cleveland, Ohio. So thank you to Forbes for allowing us to be a part of this journey with you from a 30 under 30 perspective. But I think about this. I think success comes from the convergence, and I've learned this from Dan or from any other leader that I've seen, but convergence of hard work. You can't, there's no shortcuts in these things to success. Passion for what you do. If you play with passion, and it doesn't have to be about sports, I want to be clear, but for me early on, it was passion about selling. It was passion about marketing. Be passionate about what you do. You have to be permeable to new ideas, open to learning. The speed of the game, and I'm talking about the game on the court, I'm talking about the speed of business and life. That pipe is so big now, you have to be open to evolving. I say all the time, I'm not a finished product. I will never be a finished product for as long as I walk in those doors and have a job. And then the last thing I think is you have to be innately positive. I have a saying that you never look at something, you never look at a challenge, you look at everything for the opportunity it creates, not the challenge it presents. And I think having that mindset automatically skews you to, how can I figure this out? Because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're running a business, if you're doing something, you're going to run into a lot of different things that are come at you. But don't look at it for the challenge it presents. Look at it for the opportunity it creates.
Yeah, absolutely. You left perseverance out there too, because you were perseverant. When you got into the business, you got to be perseverant, persistent.
Yeah.
Nick, thank you so much for the time. So much to talk about. I'm sure we will do so as the season progresses. Good luck to you guys this season. Right, healthy. You got to be healthy in order to go. But I'm looking forward to following the Cavs. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all in the finals against the Warriors or the Lakers.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jabari.